We're going to start the session because we will need to wrap up about 5 minutes early just to get you back into the plenary room in time for 4:30. So just to check you're in the right session, this one is around showcasing the exciting range of ways that digital technology is changing, how we do and manage volunteering, and how the volunteering experience and community impact is changing as a result. So my name's Tina Williams. I'm CEO of Volunteering WA and also your facilitator and now presenter a little bit later on as well. I'd like to start by doing an acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands in which we meet today, the Ngunnawal people, and pay respects to elders past and present. In contrast to Canberra, back in WA, we're in Bunuru season. That's the hottest season by far and the driest time of year. And if you're visiting soon, it's also the best time to get some beautiful seafood. So our intro to the session. Innovation plays a significant part in successfully engaging, recruiting, managing and mobilising volunteers globally. This session goes hand in glove with the conference theme, The Future is Now. It aligns magnificently with the new volunteering strategies, focusing on volunteer experience, community and social impact, and conditions for volunteering to thrive. I'm very excited to facilitate this session and introduce you to our revolutionaries of innovation. These wonderful people here, each of them will share their insights, foresight, expertise in achieving impact in that ever-evolving IT space. So I would like to kick off by introducing you to the first presentation. And this is Marion, Allan and Rose Leto-Rerecic, who will just take you through their programme. Over to you.
So my name is Rose and I'm the Operations Manager of Volunteering at the Smith family. From humble beginnings on Christmas Eve in 1922, 5 businessmen provided gifts to children in need. Our centenary of support started in assisting families to emergency relief in the 70s and our shift to support children's education from the 1980s. The Smith family has played an important role in Australian society. In 2022, we celebrated 100 years of commitment to providing lives of Australian children living in poverty, and we really can't do this without our volunteers. The Smith family has launched an ambitious 5-year strategy to realise our organisation's vision of a world where every child has the opportunity to change their future, and we have 2 goals to achieve this: to make an even bigger difference to the lives of children who need our help and to grow our reach of programs. Our 5-year strategy will see us expand our evidence-based programs and provide even more children and young people with the opportunity to learn today so they can change their tomorrows. Overall, our goal is to support our growth strategy from 2023 to 2027 to 100,000 students on scholarship and 250,000 program participants. I'm sure this story is familiar. Prior to COVID, we had 8,000 volunteers, and today our total volunteers is 5,000, with 116,000 hours of support in face-to-face and virtual roles. So today we're going to share our experiences in managing a virtual volunteer workforce, the systems and practice journey that meets this vision. Volunteers are an intrinsic part of our people at the Smith family. They are a key enablers to achieve the strategy and the support and contribution they provide as the foundation of how we empower people to support our programs. Remote or virtual volunteering is not something new at the Smith family. We have many examples of virtual volunteering. We have programs mentoring high school students and our literacy program for primary school students. We also have examples of back-end support in administration and customer service, where the managing team have been able to transfer and scale up what was once done in an office now to be done online. And today we're going to share these examples with you. Volunteers staying engaged. In response to the COVID pandemic, the Smith family utilised our agile strengths and enabled exploration and implementation of a change of systems and a new way of working for all of us. We saw options in utilising resources already accessible with device support to volunteers. We sent them laptops, we got them in touch with our IT department, and we also saw the opportunities in recruitment with a need for a flexible workforce. We saw this as an opportunity to do things differently to ensure that our work continued in a way that volunteering would not be disrupted. Volunteers supported in the work. So in practice, we thought about learning and development opportunities. Critical in our thinking and planning and what tools did we have or could create to train and onboard online. And we were able to provide self-directed training using Articulate as a learning tool for volunteers and volunteer managers. Volunteers valued and connected. Staying connected with our volunteers, we saw benefits of using technology, and Marion's going to share some examples of this. So volunteers knew we valued their input while physical volunteering was paused. To continue this now, they are working within a virtual or a hybrid environment.
Thanks, Rose. I'm team leader of a virtual or a national virtual team, and I sit within the program and scholarship administration team at the Smith family. 5 years ago, as an organisation, we invested in an online family platform called My Smith Family, which was a place for students and families to connect with their sponsors and with the organisation. And through innovative technology, we've been able to remove several barriers, creating deeper connection between students, their sponsors, and the Smith family. But as Rose mentioned, and many of you have experienced, losing volunteers through COVID really jeopardised our workload. And we have addressed this challenge by enabling volunteers to work from home. Firstly, in that space of sending them laptops and other needed equipment, and then having support from volunteer managers and our IT department. And this led to a different way of thinking, and led to bigger dreaming about how we could actually offer more exciting opportunities for our volunteers in the virtual space. So that was by investing in both systems and people. Another challenge that we as a child-safe organisation faced was the length of time for high-end and comprehensive screening when bringing longer-term volunteers into our team. And this is a requirement for volunteers to work in our internal systems. So that led to the creation of a new volunteer portal, and showing on this slide just an example of what that volunteer portal landing page looks like. It's basically an extranet which de-identifies the documents that our admin volunteers are working on. And this system has really met the demand for increased short-term volunteer support without those lengthy screening processes. And we've also implemented a new Power app for onboarding volunteers into the system. So we can actually onboard, rather than typing in individuals, we can actually onboard hundreds at one time. The other thing that we've really invested in are the permanent staff through that new team which I'm leading. And we have a direct focus on supporting our virtual volunteers. It's really important to find the right people with the heart and skills to manage an ever-growing team of virtual volunteers. Front of mind for us also are their motivations, learning and development, reward and connection needs, and acknowledging that there are distinct types of volunteers. So the portal that we've designed includes how we onboard, how we assign tasks, train and support our volunteers as well. And our portal also offers greater connection to the wider organisation. So we have links to pages of interest on our web pages, videos, student stories, and it also allows for current news, key dates, workflow and feedback. So just trying to make that volunteer experience as positive as possible. As mentioned, knowing that volunteers have many different motivations and needs, our new system actually allows for great flexibility. We can match skills and motivations. It allows for any age and ability. Volunteers can work from home using their own device and internet, choosing hours that suit them. And that is such a great selling point because not all office hours suit all volunteers. It offers options for everything from a 1-hour corporate engagement activity to short-term support in our peak times to longer-term and regular volunteering. And we offer different models of volunteering now within our team, from completely virtual to some in office or a hybrid combination of both. But it's great because there are no location restrictions. So anyone around the country can volunteer within our new virtual space. You'll see on this slide some of our wonderful volunteers. There are 3 ladies here who have more than 40 years of volunteering between them, which is pretty phenomenal. And these ladies were in-office volunteers and they have moved into a virtual team and are loving it. We're finding that volunteer retention is increasing with greater satisfaction by implementing ideas such as fortnightly virtual coffee catch-ups for those seeking deeper connection. We invite guest speakers to share more about our work and programs within the Smith family. We have newsletters, Teams page, communication, training, development, everything around engaged, connected, valued and supported with volunteers. And the next iteration is to give volunteers the option to self-assign the work.
Toby Johnson said in 2020, the thing to recognise is that supporting remote volunteers takes a slightly different approach, or at the very least, a more intense focus of support. And the Smith family continues to focus on how we use technology to continue enhancing our work and broadening our reach, while at the same time maintaining flexibility for our volunteers. We've introduced Zendesk as a customer support tool to manage an overwhelming 25,000 Outlook inbox. This tool allowed us to triage volunteer inquiries with a quicker response and created greater efficiencies. And alongside that, we were able to create 80 plus articles to common questions from volunteer managers that is actioned by our support centre, which you can see online. To increase opportunities in the future, volunteer involving organisations need to consider what resources do volunteers and volunteer managers need, and what does the future look like for your organisation to continue future-proofing your processes. And we've done that as well in looking at fit to work for our police checks, as well as we're about to increase our capability in using our CRM. We hear from our volunteer applicants that flexibility is a main driver for them, especially in those short-term roles. And we see it as an untapped opportunity in corporate and community opportunities available online. Certainly matching skills to specific roles available is critical in that space. I think just to finalise, what comes to mind is what the UN said back in 2016. Anyone can volunteer. All that is needed is a computer, a commitment, a connection and a good dose of commitment. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rose and Marion. I know there's an awful lot of us to learn from their programme and how volunteering, virtual volunteering is working there. There will be Q&A that we can ask questions afterwards. So now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Victor from Community.
Okay, it's great to see everyone here. The last time we all gathered was 5 years ago when we first launched. In ICC, I had my kid who was 3 months old. He was the youngest volunteer to date. His name is Ethan. But just to start off with, I want to thank all the VA staff and volunteers because I know how much work actually goes into this to pull it together. So why am I here? I run a social enterprise called Community, and our mission is to use technology to connect, engage, and mobilize volunteers to solve complex issues. We're an aggregator, and we essentially work between corporates, universities, VIOs, and of course, individual volunteers so that we can amplify our impact. To date, we've collaborated with over 3,000 VIOs nationally, but from my point of view, we've barely scratched the surface to what we can actually do at a scalable level. Having said that, we're always innovating, making mistakes, and today's kind of our opportunity to share some of the things that we have tried in the last 2 or 3 years, some for better or worse, and see what you can actually take away with it. So I guess from your point of view, why are you here? I hope that most of you are genuinely interested in tech for good, or you're just, you love something new. And for those people who unfortunately couldn't find another place to go, don't worry. To give you, to get your undivided attention for the next 9 minutes, I promise you 3 things, which is I won't use any tech jargons. I'll keep things very practical, and I like to stick to high-level insights. But if you want to have a yarn about anything I want to share today, please look out for me or anyone else from the community team with the green shirt. Okay, so look, let's start by looking at some of the volunteer activities that can benefit from the use of tech. And internally, we've categorized volunteering opportunities into 3 parts. One is role-based opportunities, second is event-based, and third are project-based. For RBOs, or role-based opportunities, we've seen the use of tech to facilitate mentoring opportunities and board positions to actually receive a surge in the last 2 years. Particularly around the use of communication tools and knowledge management tools. That was very clear to be seen. And riding off the back of, I guess, the latest change of working environment where a lot of staff had to work remotely, I think there's an opportunity like Smith Family is doing on how to actually support your volunteers to make that transition as well. We haven't really seen enough of people supporting their volunteers and investing in their resources and infrastructure to make that work. From a EBO or event-based opportunity perspective, I think a lot of us have juggled the idea of running webinar or online events. If you participated, great. If you try to organize one, good luck. And I think we're all struggling with learning how to actually run events in a hybrid manner, which I can tell you, even we are struggling how to remain engaging to the audience. It is hard. It's almost like you're kind of running 2 concurrent sessions at once and looking at the camera and looking at everyone and facilitating both at the same time. 2 examples I want to share is one with our partner, the Funding Network. For those who know, they run crowdfunding events very successfully using face-to-face, engaging MC and just getting kind of people behind the stories of the not-for-profits and getting them to kind of open their wallets. Since the start of the pandemic, they've actually done very well for themselves in expanding into the virtual space. And what they did wasn't necessarily to just switch the whole thing into virtual overnight. It's more about how to use technology to actually increase engagement and recognize people straight away whenever they put their hand out and put $100 in. And then on top of that, to expand into more of a global reach. So rather than just looking at someone who can turn up to a Sydney metro area in the CBD where the parking is $49, you're now looking at kind of international reach, and you have literally families and kids joining in from all over the world because they've heard about this crowdfunding network, and that's through the power of technology itself. We ourselves, we run a virtual ideation workshop we call a hackathon. It's a bit nerdy, it's from the geek land, but what we do is essentially engage up to about 140 people from different skills and different backgrounds to just solve some of the business challenges for different VIOs. It's done in a 4-hour block. We use a collaboration tool called Miro Board. If you don't know what it is, look it up. Alex over there, who's our product manager, he swears by it. We use it all the time. But we just found it to be a really, really easy way for people to collaborate online and do something together. Last one I want to share, it's around project-based opportunities. So skill-based volunteering is probably the most common form of PBOs. And it's kind of similar nature to contract-based work. Whilst there are certainly employee volunteering programs that try to facilitate skill-based volunteering through a more of a manual side, matching people and finding right skills, we found that there's a lot of things that we can tap into the gig economy platform and online community building platforms that we haven't really even tried to explore. For us, this is our bread and butter. We started 5 years ago being a specialist in skill-based volunteering. And I think there's still a lot of potential in tapping into PBOs. It's just that unfortunately, it takes a bit of education on how project-based opportunity work. It takes a bit of humility to open up and go, hey, my organization is not perfect in every way, and I need some help from this type of people and this type of skill set. Can you find me someone, and let's just have a chat and a conversation. Unfortunately, it's roughly about 5 to 6% of the volunteer pool at the moment. And I think this is where the goal really is in terms of helping the sector build capacity and overcome some of the challenges that corporate and small businesses have done over and over again through skilled or specialist volunteering. From a volunteer management perspective, we've also seen an increase in the use of technology. If I look at the 4 stages of volunteer engagement, so from the recruitment, I think job boards have been around for a while, trying to kind of meet the need of the supply and demand curve. And we've seen kind of steady growth on the use of job board and attraction around it. However, we look at it looking at it really targets a specific type of volunteers who knows exactly what they're looking for and have the motivation to even go online to look for it. Where the potential is really, we think, to use technology to go to where the volunteers congregate. If you start a retail business, you don't, you try to start at a place where there's foot traffic and then go from there, not to try to start in whoop whoop and then make a point of difference and then tell people how good you are and hopefully they'll take a car ride over to you. And that's something that we haven't really tapped into as much as a sector using technology. We still try to start our own shop somewhere else from where the traffic actually is. In terms of induction, this is by far where we've seen the most adoption of technology. So, again, referring to the Smith family, we've seen a bigger part of automation in using online booking systems, in learning management systems, and even dedicated apps to speed up the induction process. It's almost seamless. We're seeing plenty of examples doing that. Our view on that, or at least my view on that, is that the challenge is actually finding a balance between automation and human interaction. It's very easy to go too far. And from my point of view, the induction, that first impression, it's the most critical part of the whole process, because that determines whether they're even going to come back afterwards. So there is a penalty or potential cost of automating too much in that induction side. On engagement, we've seen organizations use collaboration tools and opening their intranets up for volunteers as well so that they can use. Whilst it certainly helps with the outputs or the production of outputs, it might sometimes put too much emphasis on transactional activities and remove some of the opportunities for volunteers to bond. It's great. I'm definitely going to catch up with you guys afterwards. To, again, find a balance between creating a space for people to just hang out and build a camaraderie. It's kind of like when we went back to work, the first thing people crave for was not the let's go on the computer and sit next to each other and do the same thing. It's actually the kitchen corridor conversations that you can't really have unintentionally using Zoom. Like, you just don't go up and go, let's have a chit chat about random stuff. So that's the bit that, it's kind of undermined by some of the technology that had going. And then lastly, on recognition, don't worry, I'm on time. I want to bring up 2 areas in recognition, and this is a bit that I think technology hasn't really played much at all. In the commercial sector, gamification is actually a whole industry, and we've seen the good and the bad of gamification. It's definitely been highly used in commercialization of businesses, but I think there is actually something there that we can tap into and use it as a force for good. We're certainly exploring that in this year and the next 18 months, but stay tuned. Hopefully we can share something of what we learn. And then to take it a step further, we've seen people who start using tech and take recognition a step beyond into tangible rewards around gifting of goods and experiences and embedding it into tech. My view is be careful. Early research has shown that the reward system and working into recognition sometimes confuses a volunteer's motivation of why they're actually volunteering. But we're an innovator, so we're going to give it a shot and see what samples are out there worldwide. But if you are intending to use kind of gifting as part of recognition system and automating with tech, then let's go slow and steady and make sure that we don't kind of cheapen the volunteer experience. Just as a wrap up, I'll just skip a few slides to keep the time. There we go. I guess to wrap up the session, I want to borrow a quote from, again, Santos, my product manager, which is, technology is very good at getting rid of the junk between volunteers and VIOs. So for example, the administration, the back and forth correspondence, the waiting time, waiting for that next email to come. You said 25,000 emails or something. Yeah. That's crazy. I can't even imagine. But for us, I just want to say, look, you're not alone. You guys are experts in engaging volunteers in the comms, in creating that story. We're here to try to help you navigate what is the appropriate level of tech that you should use based on the readiness of your program, what you're looking for, and where you're stuck at. So if you are kind of wondering how can technology help kind of work or embed into your volunteering program, then by all means, come and have a chat with us to find out where you can start. If you're curious about something that I've lightly touched on today, again, we're in a very tight time box, then find one of us in a green shirt and have a chat. And then lastly, we also run a lot of activities and programs with universities and with corporates that are completely free of charge for VIOs. So if you're interested in engaging those two stakeholder groups, then please, again, have a yarn with us. We've got a little store in the exhibition hall, but click on the QR code and then have a chat with us and see what we can do together. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor, and I think thank you as well for some of those really good observations, particularly around the importance of maintaining that personal connection when we're trying to move things online and be more streamlined, and also that whole gifting idea as well. I think that's really important. Now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, and that's Bennett Merriman from Rostify.
G'day everybody, great to be here. Hit the next slide. That's my head twice, and just to prove it is me, I'm wearing the exact same shirt and probably smiling the same way. I'll have a different shirt tonight, I hope, because I've just about done it to death so far. But here to chat about technology. Great to see the room is full. It's an exciting subject matter, so an exciting topic and something that we're super passionate about at Rostify, and personally super passionate about the space myself. I've done a lot of volunteering and also been a volunteer manager in the past, and drowned in spreadsheets, drowned in color coding columns, drowned in emails, drowned in phone calls, and realise all the issues and the challenges that a lot of you might face, or that hopefully we can help eradicate, so to speak, in the next 5 or 10 years as well. So I'm a co-founder of Rostify. We've been around 6 years now, Melbourne based, but we are recognised and we work on the global scale in a number of verticals. But the space that we're super passionate about is not-for-profit, local government, and helping future-proof technology and future-proof volunteer programs, so that we don't just help you for the next 3 months, we actually help you for the next 5, 10 years. And off the back of the strategy at lunchtime, I think it's super important that we acknowledge that short-term fixes may not be enough. We have to look a lot further in advance, and maybe take the leap of faith, and really be comfortable and know that perhaps providers like Rostify are really on your side, and we want to work closely with you, just as Victor said as well. So something we're passionate about, and we want to see impactful change happen going forward as well. Rostify's purpose and our mission is connecting communities to events and causes they're passionate about. Last year, we powered 10 million volunteer hours globally. We work with 175 different clients across the globe, and a big impact statement and a big driver for us is measuring the impact of volunteer hours that we can help support organisations through Rostify as well. So looking at that on an ROI perspective, we're very proud to talk about the hourly rate that you can recognise on an ROI, and we see it as about $280 million of value and efficiencies that we can help offer organisations as well. Internally, we have a goal of 1,000 volunteer hours across our team, across the planet this year as well. Put simply, it may not look a one-stop shop, but the efficiencies and the effectiveness of Rostify is to help you understand that we know that there's a number of stages in the volunteer journey, and there's a number of touch points with volunteers as well. So we've lived, we've breathed it, and the most important thing to know is that you may not need a CRM, an online training, a background check, a number of different modules and platforms. Rostify can help support you through that transition as well. So instead of volunteer management, we refer to it as workforce and workflow management. So a whole workflow from initiating the recruitment all the way to seeing them at their shift and recognising them afterwards as well. We can help with all those touch points along the way. A couple of key themes that are worth considering. I mentioned it at the top, but thinking about your program in 3 to 5 years and 10 years, there may be volunteer management solutions out there that could be off the shelf, could be simple and could help you in 3 months. Rosterify is about helping you in 3, 5, 10 years and make really substantial change and help work with you, configure and make sure your program's future proofing as well. One thing to think about now, and hopefully it's a good theme out of the next couple of days, we think volunteers, as we all know, should be seen as any employee or any full-time staff member. You should treat your volunteers as a full-time staff member and actually represent yourselves, represent your brand as if you're going out to market looking for a full-time worker as well. So I think that's critical and something that you should keep in mind. Be attractive to all demographics, potential volunteers. Globally, the most common demographic is 25 to 34-year-olds in volunteering. It may not be reflective day to day in some organisations, but it's something we have to look at when we future-proof as well. Treat your volunteers like the superhumans they are. No doubt that is already happening, but a platform and efficient ways of doing things can really reflect that. Tech adoption over the last 3 years is becoming more and more prevalent. We know that it's a big part of day-to-day use across all demographics, but we also see it as being a key reason why volunteers may be more adaptive to technology now than perhaps they were 3 or 4 years ago. So something to keep in mind and something to actually look into further as well. What we also find is that volunteer management can often rely on 1 or 2 people. Often those people have personal relationships with volunteers as well. It helps and it is a challenge to future-proof when a lot of knowledge and a lot of volunteer relationships are within one person in your organisation. Simply put, a CRM or database can really help unlock that and actually future-proof your program going forward, so you're not relying on any certain individuals as well. And then also the big ones are social aspects. So virtual volunteering, like Victor said, bringing together a portal and opportunities across the board make it really key to actually promote that volunteer aspect going forward. A couple of key elements to where the actual ROI can be seen in the platform. A lot of it is spreadsheet based, but we also know that technology is being adapted more and more going forward. So dashboards for executives to promote what their reporting looks like. What are you doing in that space? How can we help with that? How can we link sponsorship revenue to programs? Looking at the element of practical elements around reducing stress on volunteer managers. I was in a position a number of years ago where I was uncertain about volunteer numbers. There was a lot of importance, a lot of pressure put on, and I just generally couldn't sleep at night. It was a horrible feeling and super stressful, not knowing if your volunteers are going to turn up or if they're going to attend as well. And it's something that hopefully we can eradicate with technology going forward. And there must be a smarter way. So hopefully out of the conference, you can see that there are better ways and more efficient ways of doing things. Very quickly, a couple of case studies. So we work with mid to enterprise not-for-profits and really help with efficiencies as they scale. So in the UK, we work with 400 op shops and retail outlets. We're also working with the Red Cross, St Vinny's, Lifeline across Australia as well. Within their engagement of volunteers and their onboarding, we reduce that from 4 weeks to 2 days, simply through the background check, the reference check, and all the actual manual process that go into it. The other case study is around Starlight Foundation. We actually reduced the workload on their full-time workforce managers and volunteer managers by 50%, gave them more time to recruit and actually be outbound and proactive in bringing volunteers on board. The final one was with Cancer Council as well. So working with them closely to do their event volunteering, retail volunteering, and also their internal corporate volunteering programs across the board. Some really key illustrations of case studies that we've worked with. With only a couple of minutes left, I thought I'd give you a very quick indication of what the platform actually looks like, what it appears. The UX and looking professional is obviously something that's important. We know that things can be complex and accessibility is really important as well. So we try and make it as presentable and as easy to use as it needs to be. So you've got volunteer portals that make it very clear that volunteers have a home, they can capture the information, they know where to go. Communications, whether through notifications, SMS or email, super important to keep that proactive, but also have touch points with your volunteers. Automations, someone registers, they get interviewed, they get background checked. We can help with that process and work closely with organisations to make it efficient as well. As we mentioned before, rewards, that can be used, that cannot be used. It's really up to you if you want to build those into the platform, but it gives them a ability to actually reward and recognise volunteers at the very end of their journey with you as well. And the reporting, dashboards, executive level, what is the impact that your organisation's having? It's very easy to actually pull that information and showcase that. Wrapping up, a big part of our social campaign is to tell the story about volunteers. Why a volunteer? What are we doing as well? So we have obviously a platform that can help, but what we're driven by is actually telling the story around volunteers and bringing it to life. So over the next 3, 6, 12 months, we'll be showcasing this a lot more and hopefully revealing and bringing to life a lot more of the stories and the actual excellent work volunteers do as well. So that's more of a marketing initiative that we're looking at, but something we're proud to bring to life and hopefully work with organisations across the board. So hopefully there's 1 or 2 things you've took away from that. You may not have known about us, you may have known about us, but we're really keen to work with organisations, learn about what you do, and being local and Australian-based, I'm super proud to help transition the industry into the next few years as well. So thanks for listening and we'll see you soon.
Thanks very much, Bennett. And as I said before, there's plenty of time after, if I keep to time, for questions. Now, I will say in advance, I just will say in advance, I am standing in for someone else in this presentation today, and that someone else is an Irish lady, and she does speak very quickly. I don't, and so I will try and keep up as best I can. So we'll see how we go, but I might just skip a few slides as well as I go along. So today is really about sharing some insights into emerging trends in volunteering and how technology is impacting the volunteering landscape. It's about really looking at the way that people want to volunteer, but I think, as Victor said as well, it's also finding that balance between that personal connection too. And also how that then impacts on our community. So we're going to look at the IT ecosystem and the moving parts before taking a closer look at the various IT systems developed for and used by the volunteering sector. Touch on the benefits that they provide as well with the community. So I think we can all agree that COVID also had a dramatic effect on volunteering worldwide and throughout Australia. Worldwide, we're seeing massive shifts in the way workforce is evolving at a fast pace and adapting to technology. So I'm talking really about workforces as well as our volunteers. I think so much so, it's predicted that AI will replace 47% of jobs in the US by 2030, which is not a long time, not too far away. And whilst these predictions are really scary, I think we can also look at some advantages and what those advantages look like in the way that we live and the way we work through an era of transformation. So how does this impact volunteering? Well, digital or virtual volunteering has been around for many years, but we've seen a rapid growth since COVID. And I think, some of the examples that have been shared today, I don't know if anyone attended the first session this morning where we saw the Salvos online and then also Shark with their online support groups. And we've also had this presentation as well from the Smith family. There are many organisations shifting onto virtual volunteering. And I think it's really also in response to how volunteers want to choose how they volunteer. And also with a significant increase in informal volunteering. So we are seeing a surge in new and engaging volunteering opportunities, with volunteer programs being more inclusive through digitalisation, providing greater flexibility, accessibility, and extending graphically. We're also seeing increased demand for technology to recruit and manage volunteers and redesign those volunteer programs.
So our volunteering ecosystem is made up of multiple components, both at back of office and front facing. This slide also highlights several volunteering platforms and systems currently used by the volunteering sector, denoted with our friendly little robot. So behind the scenes, we've got examples of policies, procedures, development, bug fixing, testing, troubleshooting, help desk and support for software systems and general volunteering inquiries. And we have also in VWA, sorry, Volunteering WA, what we call our VIO help desk. Our public-facing systems and solutions include volunteer recruitment, referral, management, and emergency volunteering. And I'll take you through a few of those. We have Victor and Victor Lite, which is our recruitment system, Involve, which is our volunteer management system, an emergency volunteering system, and we'll discuss these in a little bit more detail. But all these systems can also talk to one another, which is the beauty of them. Okay, so Victor has been in operation for almost 20 years, or if you want to call it Victor or the National Volunteering Platform. It's had lots of facelifts along the way, thanks to Aduca, our developers, and I'm going to ask these guys to stand up because they've come all the way from WA and actually one from Melbourne as well. Come on. Only. So this is the Aduca team. Thank you. And also we have a long-standing relationship as well with Seek Volunteer, and I think they're in the room as well. Beck and Kaz, are you there? Oh, you're just waving, you're shy. I'll leave you alone, okay. So basically, the work for the systems that we operate has been around for a very long time, and it's due to very, very long partnerships as well. So Victor is more than just a volunteer recruitment database. It also collects and stores information on volunteer positions. It's also capable of customization options, referral information, reporting, and more. We have over 10,000 volunteer resource centres and volunteering involving organisations Australia-wide using Victor and now Victor Lite to post their positions. On any given day, there are over 12,000 positions advertised on the platforms around Australia. You only need to post your position once for it to be displayed across multiple websites. These positions are displayed on volunteering peak body websites, Go Volunteer, Seek Volunteer, and up to 50 websites and platforms across Australia, with a reach of over 2 million volunteers each year. So very simply, Victor is primarily used by VRC, so Volunteer Resource Centres, and that's because it provides them with the in-depth reporting that they need to meet their funding requirements and acquittal requirements, and also for their project management. Whereas Victor Lite is really designed for you guys as volunteer involved in organisations. It's a much younger version, denoted there with that little younger guy, offering an easier and faster experience for volunteering involved in organisations that need simpler solutions to recruit volunteers. You can check it out at volve.org.au or visit Involve display in the exhibition hall. So Involve is a volunteer management platform, and it's made for coordinators, managers and administrators to track, plan and mobilise volunteers in one easy tool. So you can onboard your volunteers using custom checklists. You can create profiles for each of your volunteers, including skills, certificates, experience and availability. You can set and confirm volunteering shifts within your program and keep track of hours with inbuilt timesheets. You can also do micro-credentialing. So this system is also used for tracking volunteering experience for people that are perhaps looking for paid work and want to actually show, I suppose, a history of time that they've volunteered. It also allows volunteers to view and confirm their attendance, measure your organisation's impact with in-app reporting to help you for future funding grants and project evaluations, plus a lot more. So the feedback to date has been fantastic. It is a new system and we're getting it up and running now. With VIOs and LGAs who participated in our pilot phase, they say that Involve is exactly what the market was missing. It's built like you've built it exactly for us. The user interface is great and so simple and easy to use.
And you can see it for yourself here on the Involve display. So, the other great thing about Involve is that you also have 3 levels of access. So you can manage your volunteers for each, and it looks different from one organisation to the next. You can manage it your way. So we've created 3 levels of access. So you can choose from administrators, volunteer managers, or programme coordinators. I won't go into the detail there, but there are obviously different accessibilities and functions for each one of them. And next is, in closing, I just, sorry, I've jumped along a few there. So digital technology is changing so rapidly, we need to keep up and continually develop and invest to ensure we achieve the greatest volunteering experience and community impact. And what's your solution? With so many excellent solutions available, I'd urge you to find a platform that's best for you and your organisation. The QR code will take you to Involve, and you can pop in and see the booth. I've already said that. It's named it a few times. But as I said, you know, the guys here as well can really share some of their experiences and those products as well with you. And that's all from me. Thank you. That's bang on time, so we can go straight into questions and answers. So we have some microphones here. If anyone has any questions. Anyone? Oh, yes.
Hello. Well, yeah, there I am. My name's Adam Lopez. I'm from Volunteerability in South Australia. And I was wondering, with a system like Involve, where you have an automated checklist system, as someone who works with people with disability, to get them involved with volunteering in their community, is there a risk that you, because you're checking it across the lines of here are the things that they require, or here are the things that we want to check off to make sure, do you think that it might lessen a volunteer organisation's ability to role carve, to find a way for people who, you know, to do half the role rather than the whole role, so to speak?
Do you mean, sorry, do you mean the volunteer manager that's actually going through that induction or process? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, you,
okay.
you've got a system to advertise automatically, and then those advertisements are answered with, and then you have something that automatically rates those according to a checklist system.
You basically can customize your checklist with Involve. So you can actually adapt it to whatever you want it to be. So it's obviously got all of the standard options on there, but you can choose what those options are depending on what the position is and what the requirements are for your organisation.
Nice.
Do we have any other questions? Oh, yeah. Oh, hand's going up now.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Darwin Community Legal. What is the costings involved with Innovate? We are a non-for-profit and we do free legal advice, and we don't have a lot of funding towards our volunteer programs. So what would be the costing for a service to get on board for this?
The cost for Involve, are you talking about the cost for Involve, or are you talking about other platforms cost, or?
Yep, the cost for Involve, the platforms used for that.
Okay, well, the cost for Involve is actually free for very small organisations, and so you can speak to your peak body about that. But also, you can also talk to Robert, who's in the exhibition hall, who can walk you through some of those things too.
Thanks. Shane Harris from Uniting Care. Question for the Smith family. You mentioned about Power Apps, I think it was called. Could you expand on what Power Apps is?
It's a Microsoft platform, Power Apps, and we've just used that and developed that to be an onboarding system that speaks to our actual platform and volunteer portal. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, so you're using Power Apps to automate the workflows, is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
Cool.
Hello, I'm Mia from Ronald McDonald House Charities. My question's also for the Smith Family Group. Do you see a really distinguishable difference between the engagement and retention of your virtual volunteers compared to your face-to-face volunteers? And I guess that question's twofold, both in retention over time, but also in terms of like, you know, a day-to-day and weekly engagement. Is there one group that's doing more or less in a noticeable way?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, look, certainly for us, retention's our focus. So what we're trying to do with our volunteer managers is to really build their relationship. You know, we hear that process is important. We hear that all the time in the sector, but you can't do that without the people. So having a retention focus is really critical to that piece. I think what the difference that we're seeing is we've got an example in our high school mentoring program. It's nearly 20 years old, and we've got volunteers that have been engaged online for almost the life of the program. So that particular program is a high retention rate because it is, even though it's an 18-week program in itself, which might seem long in an online space, yeah, it has actually got success. The face-to-face though, I guess this is where everyone is in this COVID environment, where we have to really focus back on the relationship building. So we do ask volunteers to return in an automated way, but it goes alongside the relational piece of talking to those volunteers and staying connected with them to keep them. So, because if you keep them and you have a high retention rate, there's less recruiting to do. So that's what we're trying to achieve. So I hope that answers your question, but yeah, happy to talk to you afterwards as well.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Oz Harvest. I wanted to ask the panel in general about how they've found using online and technology solutions to facilitate supporting volunteers who are culturally and linguistically diverse. Are there any features in your particular programs that you have that you found particularly useful for supporting volunteers from perhaps English as a second language backgrounds or other forms of diversity?
I'll kick us off. I mean, one of the things I had to skim through because of time was the role of technology in servicing, I guess, specialist groups of volunteers. Until such point when you can replicate a certain process kind of again and again, you know, technology is ultimately very stupid. If you don't define the parameters, it can't customize and personalize what the experience you're looking for. And I think Jimmy also alluded to the fact that for people with disability, you're actually looking for a more personalized service. And you can't just get the return on investment if you're not at a certain scale. So I would say for us, our solution is actually a blend of service with the platform. We didn't assume that the platform is just going to service people from a culturally linguistically diverse background. It had to be blended with programs, communication, and then the bits that can be automated, we bring it back to the platform and go.
I'll go next then. I just want to shout out the Seat Vol because I know that their system now is built for inclusion. I don't know, Beck, whether you wanted to mention anything about that. I'll give you a window. You can shout really loud.
Is not always cheap for platforms to do. We have just recently, and Seek Volunteer is 23 years old, but only recently invested in both our volunteer managers portal, so it can be inclusive of volunteer managers, and also the volunteer experience. So that's a lot of contrast, and Aduka did all the work, but we've committed to annually having the site assessed. So each time an external person reviews the whole site through the lens of accessibility needs, tells us, you know, if we've done stuff, new pages and things we've put up that aren't accessible, and we've committed to fixing those. So that's the first step of whoever you choose to use, is to push them to have some sort of commitment to accessibility in the first instance, and then all the other things that Victor mentioned in terms of other things. Yeah. I shouldn't say this, so don't say this outside the four walls, but Seek as an employment platform isn't, because they're much bigger than us. And so it is with the evolution of technology, the cost to keep that up, like there needs to be lots of advocacy for it. So this is a great place to start. Yeah.
Excuse me, just.
Coming out of the inclusion workshop we had this morning as well, there was very much that if you're building it with the lens of inclusion, it becomes cheaper over time. So the design in itself can have that. And this is coming from people who we are still working on that ourselves. So I'm not saying that's easy in the slightest, but it is something about our own biases, and building that into the process of design can resolve this.
Oh, another question.
Thanks. My name's Jack from PwC. My question to the whole panel is, what role do you see AI playing in the volunteering process? And if your organisations are currently using it, where are you seeing it deliver the value?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, we're obviously working similarly to make sure that it's at the speed of the industry and we can adapt to change as we need to, but we don't want to fall so far behind that other industries have gone 15 years ahead of us as well. So I think AI can work as an inclusive tool. It can look at people based on skills, availability, and experience. So it can eliminate another factors of bias as well. So hopefully over time we can actually build a lot more inclusivity through the traits and the personalities of people, not just based on age, gender, or anything else as well. So hopefully we can go in that direction.
No,